Welcome to the Health Headliner podcast by Tudu Digital. Our content is informational only and not medical advice. Please consult your provider. Now, let's dive into today's headlines.
Imagine undergoing chemotherapy, enduring all its intense challenges, only to find out years later that the cancer comes back, seemingly out of nowhere.
It's a truly heartbreaking and baffling thought, isn't it? What if the very treatment meant to cure you, well, unintentionally played a role in its comeback?
It is baffling. And, for a long time, this perplexing phenomenon of cancer relapse, particularly long after a successful initial treatment, it's been attributed to something we call dormant cancer cells.
Dormant cells.
Exactly. These are cells that survive therapy and just sort of lie in wait, hidden away. But the direct evidence for how these cells wake up, especially, in relation to chemotherapy, well, that's been incredibly unclear. It left a huge gap in our understanding, like fighting an invisible enemy.
Right. And that's exactly what we're digging into today. This deep dive is all about some groundbreaking new research that finally shines a light on this mystery. It offers some truly surprising insights and, crucially, a potential new path towards better treatments.
Yeah, it's quite significant work.
Well,
Our sources for this are a recent Health News article and the detailed scientific paper it reports on, which was published in Cancer Cell. So get ready, because you're about to hear something that might just change how you think about cancer treatment. Okay, so let's start with this idea of dormant cancer cells. I mean, it might sound like something out of a sci-fi movie, maybe.
a little.
There's a very real and persistent challenge in cancer treatment, especially we hear about it in breast cancer. These are cells that manage to survive the initial therapies, but then they lie sleeping, often for years, in distant organs, far from the original tumor site, like hidden ticking time bombs almost.
That's a good analogy. While doctors can achieve complete regression of the primary tumors, which is great, these persistent cells, we call them disseminated tumor cells or DTCs, they remain in this non-proliferative, quiet state.
They're not growing.
Not actively dividing, no. And for decades, scientists predicted their eventual awakening would lead to metastatic relapse, where the cancer spreads and reemerges. But the real hurdle, the tricky part, has always been the lack of direct, observable evidence of this actually happening. How do you even see a cell that's dormant and then track its awakening in real time?
Yeah, how do you watch something that's defined by not doing anything?
Exactly. It's been incredibly difficult to prove definitively.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, though. A brilliant team of researchers at the Shanghai Institute of Nutrition and Health of the Chinese Academy of Sciences, they developed this really ingenious tool to finally track these elusive dormant cells. They called it DormTracer.
Ah, yes, DormTracer.
It sounds like a game changer for this field, almost like giving scientists a microscopic CCTV camera just for these specific cancer cells.
It really is a very clever system. You can think of it like a tiny spy, maybe, that permanently tags a cell the moment it enters dormancy. It gives it a specific signal, almost like switching on a permanent red light for that cell. It uses a modified form of a protein that's known to be involved in dormancy, called P27. And when a cell uses this pathway to go dormant, DormTracer flips a switch, turning on a permanent fluorescent marker, specifically one called M-cherry.
So it glows red if it's ever been dormant.
Precisely. So later on, if that red-lighted cell suddenly starts dividing again, and they check that using another marker, key 67, which shows proliferation, the researchers know definitively that it truly woke up from sleep. It wasn't just an active cell that they missed before.
I see. That avoids confusion.
Exactly. So using this, they could distinguish between three crucial states: cells that are continuously active and dividing, cells that are truly dormant, and, this is the key part, cells that had been dormant and then reawakened. This tool provided the first, direct proof that disseminated tumor cells really do awaken from dormancy.
Wow. Okay, so we had this invisible enemy, these dormant cells, and now this incredible tracking tool, DormTracer. What do they discover about chemotherapy? The very treatment we rely on to fight cancer. Because you mentioned this might turn some assumptions on their head.
Well, this is the truly startling part, really. The study's central finding is that chemotherapy, specifically common drugs like doxorubicin and cisplatin, were actually found to awaken these dormant disseminated tumor cells.
Wait, awaken them, not kill them.
In this specific context of dormant cells, yes. The very treatment designed to kill rapidly dividing cancer cells can, in some cases, inadvertently promote the proliferation of these dormant ones, leading to relapse, particularly lung relapse in their animal models of breast cancer. It's a profound paradox.
Wow. Could you give an example from the study?
Sure. So in mouse models where they knew there were dormant cancer cells present, treating them with doxorubicin significantly increased the percentage of actively dividing cancer cells they found in the lung later on. And it dramatically enhanced the frequency and severity of lung relapse.
And DormTracer proved these were the Awakens cells.
Exactly. DormTracer definitively showed it was dormancy reactivation cells truly waking up from a long sleep and not just, say, an increase of already active cells that maybe survived the chemo somehow. This really overturns a previous assumption that chemo only targets proliferative cells and wouldn't affect dormant ones or would kill any that woke up.
Okay, I need to wrap my head around this. So the chemotherapy isn't killing those specific dormant cells. It's actually creating an environment somehow that wakes them up. That's mind-boggling. How could that possibly happen? What's the hidden mechanism here?
It is mind-boggling, but they mapped it out. It's a fascinating and actually quite complex chain reaction happening within the lung's local environment, the microenvironment. The researchers drilled down and found this multi-step process. First, there's stress on normal cells nearby. Chemotherapy induces something called cellular senescence in fibroblasts. Fibroblasts are just common connective tissue cells found in the lung. Think of senescence as cells going into a kind of zombie-like state. They stop dividing, but they're still metabolically active, and crucially, they start secreting molecules.
Right, the zombie cells, okay.
Second, these senescent zombie fibroblasts then release specific proteins. It's sometimes called a senescence-associated secretory phenotype, or SASP. But basically, they act like distress signals. These signals trigger an immune response, activating a type of white blood cell called neutrophils.
Neutrophils, okay.
And these activated neutrophils then form something called neutrophil extracellular traps. Let me spell that out. Neutrophil extracellular traps, or NETs for short.
Okay, nets. What are those?
They're essentially these sticky webs made of the neutrophil's own DNA and various proteins. They're usually meant to trap pathogens like bacteria.
Ah, okay. So zombie cells signal neutrophils. Neutrophils make traps. Then what?
Third step, tissue remodeling. These nets, these sticky traps, then start to mess with the surrounding extracellular matrix. That's like the structural scaffold that supports all the cells in the tissue. Specifically, they found that the nets cut up or cleave a crucial protein in the scaffold called laminin 111. Again, that's laminin-111.
Laminin 111 gets cut up by the nets, and that's the final step.
That leads to the final step, yes, the wake-up call. This remodeling of the scaffold, specifically the cleavage of laminin 111, activates a specific signaling pathway within the dormant cancer cells themselves. It involves something called integrin alpha-3 beta-1 signaling.
Integrin alpha-3 beta-1.
Okay. And activating that pathway is like flipping the on switch, causing those dormant cells to re-enter a proliferative state to start dividing again. The researchers even pinpointed some key secreted proteins from those senescent fibroblasts that induce the net formation, things like complement C3, CXC motif chemokine ligand 1, and macrophage migration inhibitory factor. Complement C3 seemed to be a major player.
Wow. That is an incredibly intricate mechanism, a whole cascade, like you said. It really reveals a hidden and frankly worrying side effect of a critical treatment.
It does.
But, okay, knowing the problem and the mechanism is one thing. What can we actually do about it? Is there any good news here? Because this deep dive, you said, doesn't just present a problem. It offers a promising solution.
Yes, and that's truly the most exciting part, I think. The researchers didn't just stop at identifying the problem. They developed and tested a potential strategy to counteract it. They tried a combination treatment using chemotherapy alongside what are called senolytic drugs. Let me spell that out too. S-E-N-O-L-Y-T-I-C. Senolytic drugs.
Senolytic, like lysis, meaning to break down. So they break down senescent cells.
Exactly. These are a class of drugs specifically designed to target and promote the programmed cell death, or apoptosis, of those senescent cells, the very zombie cells that kickstart this entire awakening cascade we just talked about.
Ah, okay. So which ones did they use?
They used a combination known often as DQ. That's Dasatinib and Quercetin. Dasatin and Quercetin. These are relatively well-studied senolytics, and the study showed that giving this DQ combination alongside the chemotherapy successfully eliminated those chemotherapy-induced senescent fibroblasts in the lung models.
And did it stop the relapse?
Yes. Most importantly, this successfully suppressed tumor relapse in the lung models. By getting rid of those zombie senescent cells, they essentially cut off the very signals that were waking up the dormant cancer cells.
That makes perfect sense. You stop the first domino, the whole chain reaction doesn't happen.
Precisely. So the breakthrough here is that combining traditional chemotherapy with this senolytic cocktail of dasatinib and quercetin achieved therapeutic control of both the primary tumors, which chemo is good at, and the dreaded lung relapse, which the chemo alone was inadvertently promoting.
That offers a really significant potential improvement. It's about not just fighting the active cancer right now, but also proactively preventing the conditions that could allow it to return years later.
That's the hope, yes.
This is incredibly significant work. If we, connect this to the bigger picture, what does this really mean for patients, and where do we go from here? The implications could be pretty profound for how we approach cancer treatment in the future.
I think they are profound. This research provides a clear mechanistic explanation for why cancer might relapse after treatment, offering a much deeper understanding of chemotherapy's complex and sometimes, as we see here, unintended effects.
Yeah.
It highlights that chemotherapy, while absolutely vital for killing those actively proliferating cancer cells, we must remember that it has this off-target effect on the microenvironment, on the surrounding tissue, that can inadvertently facilitate the awakening of other dormant cancer cells that we're hiding out.
But the promising news is the potential solution.
Exactly. The promising news is the use of these senolytic drugs like dasatinib and quercetin. And importantly, these aren't brand new, untested chemicals. They've already been studied and have shown acceptable safety profiles in other clinical settings for different conditions. So this presents a new and potentially readily available avenue for improving cancer treatment.
Has it moved beyond the lab mice yet?
Yes, and this is really encouraging. The researchers mentioned that this study has already led to the launch of a phase 2 clinical trial. It's registered, specifically identified as NCT 06355-037, and this trial is combining dasatinib and quercetin with chemotherapy specifically for patients with triple-negative breast cancer, which is a type known for being aggressive and having higher relapse rates.
Wow, phase 2 trial already. That's fast progress.
It is, and it's a crucial, concrete step towards potentially improving therapy efficacy and hopefully preventing recurrence for real patients.
This whole deep dive, it truly shows us that even when it seems like the fight against cancer is won, the body holds these complex secrets that can lead to really surprising, sometimes devastating outcomes. It really makes you wonder, what other hidden mechanisms are at play in our bodies just waiting to be discovered?
Yeah.
And how can we continue to unlock them for better health outcomes?
That's a great point. This research really underscores that there's always more to learn about cancer's intricate dance with the body. It encourages us, as scientists and doctors, to keep questioning assumptions, even about established treatments like chemotherapy, and to explore new combinations of therapies. Because understanding the how, the mechanism, as we saw it here, can lead directly to discovering a better what for patients, better treatments, better strategies.
Yeah.
It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the greatest leaps forward in medicine come from understanding the smallest, most surprising interactions happening right inside us. It's an exciting time for scientific discovery, despite the challenges.
Absolutely. So as you go about your day, maybe just consider the incredible complexity of medical treatments and the ongoing, really tireless nature of scientific discovery that's happening all the time. Maybe even keep an eye out for news on clinical trials or advancements in these senolytic therapies we talked about. Your awareness and, frankly, support for science truly do make a difference in helping these kinds of breakthroughs eventually reach the people who need them most.
Thanks for tuning in to the Health Headliner podcast by To Digital. Like and subscribe for more health news and breakthroughs. Stay healthy and informed. See you next time.